you wearing headphones?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay, then no, you sound fine.
Okay.
I just have a little earbuds in. But yeah, so this is it.
Okay.
Welcome this is my first interview. I'm interviewing Jason Muhr. He is the artist of By the Horns, and it's kind of a cool concept how I got into this because I read the comic, I absolutely fell in love with it. And then one simple message, and I have the artist, and I can ask him questions, and it's just such a cool experience from like a fan perspective that we can have a back forth online and virtually. Like this is our convention. This is me coming up to your booth and saying, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I want to buy more. Please let me talk to you and ask questions." So
yeah,
welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's not too hard to get a hold of me. I'm always willing to talk about the book, talk about our work, especially the people that are nice enough to buy the work and say nice things about it. I will definitely chat you up.
That's all you're gonna get from me because I'm big into indie comics.
Mm-hmm.
I read almost exclusively indie comics, and 2 issues in, your book became my favorite indie comic, and I don't know how else to put that. Anyway, you were competing with you knocked Radiant Black to number 2 on my list, and that's like it's like the new Power Rangers, basically.
Yeah,
what Radiant Black is.
I've been reading Radiant Black as well. That's a great book,
especially from a writer's perspective. Like,
yeah.
and your book knocked it off of my top 1 spot. And I ate up everything. I absolutely love everything about the book. From the first panel, I mean, you see just a unicorn dead and a Lodi standing over it with her axe. And you're like, this is cool. This is what I signed up for. Because the way that the book was marketed was kind of interesting to me. Everybody thought unicorns, it's going to be happy. It's going to be kind of a girly book about fantasy, and not many people are going to be into it. And then you get into it, and it was just such a twist. And that's kind of what I want to ask you is, from marketing to the book, everybody that I've talked to about it has been thrown off because it wasn't what they expected in the best possible ways. Like, we weren't expecting this kick butt girl to go out and want revenge on unicorns. You don't see stories like that. It was just super cool. And then you do more research into stuff that you've done, and you're like, oh wow, they have really cool concepts. I forget your first comic book, but it was about
Voracious.
Serving dinosaur. Yes, Voracious. It was about serving dinosaur meat to people in a restaurant. And your concepts on the books that you've worked on have been phenomenal, to say the least. But also, I just, looking at what you did with By the Horns, I had to go see it at what you also did, and similar crazy concept, just taking different things, and it's really fun to see like creators exploring and creating their own new worlds. So getting to my question, this is very long-winded. Some people that I've talked to in the community, they describe your book as predictable in the best way, in the sense of like, when you're reading it, you can kind of guess where the story is going, and love that it's going there.
Yeah.
I was, without spoiling anything, are we going to be seeing like some plot twists that are unexpected coming up? And I'm assuming that everybody has read through issue 3 upon watching this video.
Yeah, I mean, for people that haven't read any of it, so By the Horns is about a hunter named Elodie, who her husband is trampled by unicorns before our story begins. And so she's obsessed with hunting unicorns, and she can't really find unicorns. They're very rare on her continent. And so she's just killing anything with a horn. And when the story begins, she's basically kicked out of her farming village because they decide, like, hey, you're not pulling your weight around here. Like, this is a community. We all have to share in the chores. Go get this out of your system. We'll give you a year. Go hunt unicorns. And that's kind of the jumping off point for our book. and that's kind of the pitch about the book. It's a hunter hunting unicorns, but I mean, I think that's just the very beginning of the book. That's just the first few pages, and after that, I think the characters take over, and like, once you're hooked by that pitch, hopefully then you're engaged with the characters and you go along for the ride. In terms of like twists and turns, yeah, of course. I mean, I think people have read through 3, they realize that Ellie does come into contact with some unicorns pretty quickly by the second issue. But there's a complication, there may be a reason why she doesn't want to kill them just yet, and that's kind of the first twist of the story, that she might be traveling with some unicorns for a while. But so the book I co-created with Mark Nasso, he's the writer, and he's really great about coming up with twists and turns. We feel like almost every issue it ends on a cliffhanger where it kind of twists the story slightly, keeps twisting it more. I think with indie comics, we're not giving as much leeway as something like, Amazing Spider-Man. People have been reading Amazing Spider-Man for 20, 30 years, so they're going to be on board month after month. With indie comics, people can jump off very quickly. So we got to keep the story moving along really quickly, and we got to keep your attention engaged. And hopefully every issue ends with a moment where you say, like, oh, I want to find out what happens next.
It totally has. Like the first 3 episodes, issues, totally have. You're just like itching for the next one. Speaking on what you just said, she deals with the morality of, I'm gonna dedicate my life to killing unicorns and getting my revenge because of what they did to. It was Shintaro.
Yes.
Was she or was he her lover or boyfriend?
He's her husband. He's her husband.
Okay.
As the story goes along, we kind of sprinkle in a little bit of the backstory. And by the time the first arc ends with issue 8, the first arc is 8 issues, you know exactly what happened to him, and you get a very clear picture of what their life was like before and the way Elodie was before the book began. Because, when the book begins, she's a very specific kind of character. You instantly know her. She's fueled by revenge. You just know her personality. You know her drive and what she's going for. But throughout the series, you get to see her before that, and you get to see like what this traumatic event has done to her and how it changed her drastically. And exactly. I think that's something that happens with almost all the characters in the book. I mean, she's the main character, but she has a companion, Seijin, who's her. He's like a deer-wolf hybrid.
Yeah,
he's her loyal companion, and you see how the events of their previous lives affected him. And then along the way, they meet these unicorns, and then they meet Evelyn too, who's a floating eyeball. And all 5 of these characters have all been affected in their lives that have sent them down this path. They've all suffered some kind of tragedy or just traumatic experience that put them on this collision course with each other. And that's one of the great things about the book, and what Marcus, the writer, excels at is just bouncing these personalities off each other and bouncing their life experiences off each other. The unicorns come from a very specific place. Elodie comes from a very specific place. Obviously, she's predetermined to hate them. And the interest between the big battles, between the quest part of the book, is the interplay between the characters and how their different life experiences come together and create magic. No pun intended.
No, that's that's a great pun. The interconnected nature of the characters is almost palpable, and that's a tough thing to do in a comic book. Like I felt awkward in the sense of like, let's say it was issue 2, and they're in the boat and they're coming back. They just defeated the wizard, and they're coming back, and it's like, why? Like the tension was just like, because Elodie wants to kill these unicorns. Like, okay, we accomplished our mission. Now I got to kill these unicorns. It's what I want to do. But then, can you pronounce the telepathic?
Seijin.
Seijin. Okay, thank you. Then Seijin talks her out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, no, they saved our lives. We saved their lives. It's almost a wash. But the tension between the two is it's like I said, it's just hard to, in a paper form, bring these emotions about through storytelling and art. And you guys do that absolutely wonderfully, and it's great. So I have another question. 1 second. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speaking of that. Yeah, I think that's kind of the drive of the book. I mean,
mhm.
pretty early on in issue 2, Eldie gets a hold of some unicorns, and almost the whole first arc is her resisting killing them. And I think that's kind of her story. Is you also find out in the second issue there's a greater threat to her world,
Yeah.
and she kind of has to decide what's more important: revenge or protecting people. And I mean, I think it's a constant battle, issue by issue, and even issue 3, like she's ping ponging back and forth, and
Yep.
that's her
It spills
personal
over
journey.
to where she was from.
Sure.
Like it's like now, um, Hera, is that how you say
Oh, Haru? Yeah, Haru.
Haru, sorry.
Haru
Haru.
is her grandfather-in-law.
Okay, and he needs, like, the people that expelled her from the community are now wanting her back because she's their monster hunter. She's the one that defends the town, even though they got tired of her defending the town because all she brought back were monster heads, and they were tired of soup. He now is in the position where he's like, those same people that the villagers expelled her are now asking her back because there's a big baddie on the horizon that's going to be affecting the safety of their town. So
yeah, they kind of live in a village that's kind of secluded. They're kind of in the middle of the continent, and they've never really experienced any hardships in terms of evil forces. So they just have this girl who's just making trouble for them. So they're like, you got to get out of here because you're just bringing an unwanted element. And as soon as she leaves, the greater threat kind of expands into their town. And yeah, their first decision, like, we kicked this woman out, and now we might need her. And that's one of the fun things about the book too. So Mark-san and I, we came up with the concept together. We kind of broke all the broad strokes of the story, all the villains, all the characters, where we wanted to go. But I'm always surprised when I get the scripts by like little things. Like, I didn't think the village actually was going to come back until towards the end of the story. But the village still plays an important part. Haru still plays an important part because, as the story goes along, you realize the whole continent's connected. The broad strokes of the story too is Elodie and her group are traveling the continent, and every issue features a map of where they're going. There's a map on the title page that shows kind of the overview of the continent, and then every other issue, so issue 1, 3, 5, and 7 all have maps to kind of show you where she's gone and the monsters she's killed along the way. And you start to see that, like, they're all little separate communities, and each community she encounters kind of has a different vibe to it, and different types of people live there, but they're all connected by this threat. So, this By the Horns in general has a theme of community, whether it's like the little community she lives in or the continent, and the different elements that can bring people together.
Man, you just jumped ahead. That was literally my question. I was going to talk about maps, and I wanted to know, because I'm going to be doing my own indie comic, and I'm going to be drawing a map for it as well, because I think maps are great world building. I mean, they're a reference. You go back, you see the different things, and in my favorite map that you've done so far, because we've only seen 3 issues, is the map where she's kind of going through and you see the different like beasts that she has laid and little tidbits about each one, and just like, oh, like this one, like make sure that you kill it with this, or this one's poison and blah blah blah. I love the details of that kind of stuff, and
when we were coming up with the book,
world building. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we were first cracking the book, we were taking a lot of inspiration from like RPG video games, like animes. Perfect. Stuff like that. Even like magic cards with their or D&D manuals with the stats of the monsters. We knew there was going to be a ton of creatures in the book. And I think maybe I pitched the idea. I was like, why don't we have a map where we're not going to be able to fit in all the creatures we want to? So the map acts as a way to kind of put in some other creatures just by kind of like an image of them and some statistics. So I think it's a very quick way to get the reader to realize that like the world's so rich, and she's like having adventures between the issues. And, I think the writer really took to it, because as you'll see, as the issues go along, the descriptions of the monsters get more detailed. At first it starts out with a couple sentences, and by like issue 7, it's like a solid paragraph. I think he's really having fun coming up with these monsters, coming up with their backgrounds, like tying them to the region. In the 4th issue, she goes to more of a warm weather climate. And so like the creatures get a little more warm weather. You know, that's creatures hiding up in trees. You know, creatures in like swamp areas. Later, she goes to kind of a cold climate, and we kind of get the cold monsters. And that's really fun designing those things. Kind of think about like, okay, what kind of creature would live here? You know, this creature lives under the sand. So what would its body be like? You know, it would need to spring out and attack its prey. Or this kind of creature lives on a mountaintop. What kind of features would it need? I think it's just a fun way, again, to make the world feel bigger in a really streamlined fashion.
Yeah, definitely. And then, wow, that must be really fun just as from an artistic perspective. You don't get bored drawing the same thing over and over again. She's constantly going to new places. You say different climates, different, everything changes. Now, this is perfect transition. I have one more question, or not one more question, but I'd say that we're about halfway done with the interview. I have one question that was given to me, and it has to do with the wardrobe of Elodie. This particular person was concerned why Elodie is the only one. Is it Elodie or Elodie?
Elodie. It's Elodie, like Melody.
Elodie. Got it. Elodie, how she is the only one in the book that basically is not wearing like normal trousers. She has like these thigh highs, and you see a little bit of the thigh action, the top of the thigh. I wanted to know, like, what was your kind of walk me through a character design, because in the first issue, if you go to the back, which is another cool concept, we see like basically a note from you saying, hey, this is what I went through. Here's some layouts of how we designed the character. Can you walk me through some of that and the design choices, specifically the trousers?
Yeah, I think there was a review mentioning that, and I think it's funny. Yeah, I mean, well, you'll see in the back of the first issue, we kind of started out with she was more of like a barbarian woman, and the writer has suggested that she'd be more black leather. One of the things some people might not know about us, but so Mark Son, who writes the book, is a big metalhead. If he had his way, everything would be like black leather, darkness, whereas I'm the opposite. I'm like bright colors, fun stuff. I always laugh that like the book's probably written to a heavy metal soundtrack, whereas I'm drawing the book to like Taylor Swift or something like that. You know, so he had suggested that she had more of like a black leather outfit. And like the outfit, you know, I just pieced it together of elements I like. Why doesn't she have pants on? Why is she wearing more like a battle skirt? No reason. I just thought it was fun. I just thought it looked cool. It's a little Wonder Woman-esque. Yeah, she could wear pants, but I mean, it's comics. There's a give and take. We try not to be too exploitative with her, you know?
Yeah.
I think she's a strong, sexy character, but we try not to be like gratuitous with her. But
oh no, it doesn't come off like that at all.
No, I mean, I understand. You know, people have different levels of what they're comfortable with in terms of like costumes of characters. It's more just an aesthetic choice. So she's kind of wearing like a black leather outfit. I gave her like a denim coat too to go over that because it's a fantasy world, but it's kind of got some sci-fi elements too. She has a gun, but she has a sword too. So I was trying to blend sci-fi with fantasy. So like I say it in the back of the first issue that she's got a little bit Han Solo in her. She's got like the jacket and the hip blaster, but then she's got like the black leather, like kind of like The Witcher, I guess, a little bit.
That's fair. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I mean, I just kind of pulled a bunch of elements. I think there was a character I had designed when I was like in middle school, like a fantasy character, and I think I took a little bit of that design and applied it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Yeah.
But try to design a costume in a way that's distinct, is interesting to people. It's visually appealing. Like people, you know, see that character and they want to know more just based on the look of her. But also sort of like simplistic enough where I can draw it over and over again, and it will A, not get boring, but B, not be so complicated that I'm going to learn to hate it really quickly.
That's fair. That's a good point.
So that's a tough thing with artists. Like sometimes when you be designing something, you want to get really detailed and come up with really cool like moving parts. You know, like an Iron Man suit where it's got all these gears and whatnot. But by like 2 issues in, you're like, F this suit. I made a mistake. I wish it was a lot simpler.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And especially since you guys are going 8 issues in the first arc, you said?
Yeah.
That would get pretty monotonous. I'm going to take a quick minute, and we're going to shout out to the people in the chat. Yeah, nobody's here, so we're good. That saved a lot of time. Let's move on. I have another question regarding how. What's the reason behind you and Marcus specifically secretly wanting to kill your own cats?
That was I don't know if I mentioned this week's issue, but yeah, the unicorns are named after our cats. They're originally named Bruce and Ozzy for heavy metal singers. Those names didn't feel like fantasy enough for me. So Marcuson, the only thing he loves more than heavy metal is his cat. So
okay,
I decided, why don't we name it after our cats? Because I knew he wasn't going to say no to that. So yeah, that's the reason
you met him halfway.
Named after our cats. We do not want to kill our cats. Quite the opposite. As two freelancers who work at home alone, during the day, our cats are probably our only companions, to be honest.
Fair enough. Very fair enough. And when the unicorn that we see more or less dying in the first issue, is that your cat or is that Marcuson's cat?
That's Marcuson's cat, Zoso. Yeah, when the first issue opens, it's a flash forward to a year from the beginning of the first issue, and Zoso is laying in a field, and he doesn't look like he's in good shape, and pretty much the whole first arc is getting to that point. We're gonna link up. We're gonna get to that point by issue 8 for sure.
I was hooked on the first page, so the fact that I get 8 issues, getting back to that point, I absolutely love it. Absolutely love the series. It's really awesome. Okay, we just have to. Cool. Yeah, let's just do this. So there was a promo code that you gave me through direct messages. It was EATCRAP. It actually gave me a -5% discount on your personal website.
Oh,
and
no.
So I was talking to some people in the community, and I was kind of wondering if you had like a discount code that maybe more or less did the opposite of that.
For you or for everybody else?
I would say for everybody else, I will use the EATRAP discount code. I'm perfectly fine with it. But for other people in the community, I would like to give them a little bit better of a opportunity.
Yeah, maybe if you follow me on Twitter, I'll toss out a discount code to order books.
Okay, perfect. There we are. And then speaking of marketing, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. And yeah, just me here. So I'm doing a good job, and I'd like to move forward to our final kind of closing with this interview. So, like I said, from the beginning, I think that the book that you and Marcuson have created is absolutely fantastic. It is one of the best reads. I've read a lot of comic books. I don't need to like flex about how much I've read, but I was just captured by the artwork, the design, everything, the choices of color palettes and how it affects emotion, like just absolutely wondrous. And the way that you described it with Marcus being more into metal and you being more of like listening to like a Taylor Swift soundtrack, you would think that the two opposites wouldn't flow well together, but it totally works in the aspect of the writing is great, the art is great, and it flows. And what I was relating to earlier, how people were talking about it's predictable, but in the best way. It's literally a book of a concept that we didn't know that we needed, in a sense. Like, I didn't know that I wanted to cheer for somebody to go murder unicorns. Like, unicorns are not normally the bad people in stories. And as this develops, you realize that they might not even be the bad people in this story, because Elodie is having a hard time struggling with the morality of going through with her, what seems to be her motivation and the reason that she got kicked out of her community. And it's right in front of her, and she's not pulling the trigger on it. And the character development is very awesome. And I cannot tout this book enough. I'm going to keep touting it because I find it absolutely amazing. And I wish you guys the best of success. I want you to continue. I hope that this picks up for another arc. I am totally 100% on board, and I appreciate you joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we got plans beyond the first arc. I think Scout is giving us a tentative go ahead for a second arc because I love working on the book. I think when we first started it, it was going to be just a miniseries. It was going to be like a 5-6 issue miniseries, and then it kind of ballooned as we were doing the first arc. Things needed more room to breathe, and then one of the things I love most about the book is the world was created from scratch, so we can throw anything we want and do it. So like I'll be drawing sometimes, I'll just come up with recently I was like, it'd be cool, pirates. We should see some pirates. And I'll send a message like that to Marcus, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll try to work it in, and I'll just come up with different elements. Or like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if they found like an Atlantis style temple under the water? And like I'll just throw these ideas out to him, and like anything goes in the book, and it just keeps spurring new story ideas. So we got ideas for a second arc, a third arc, possibly more. This first arc is definitely going to have an end. We're going to get to that point in the first issue where you see Zoso laying in that field dying. So we're going to get to that point. We're going to get to some kind of conclusion with these characters. But I think with all good fantasy, you're going to find out that the world's even much bigger than that, and we can keep growing, keep expanding the story and the scope of the story, but while maintaining that the book is essentially about characters and about their past, their wants, the baggage they bring to their relationships in the present.
And there aren't that many characters in this story, but they all relate very well. And you got this ragtag bunch, which includes 2 unicorns, a telepathic deer dog, a floating eyeball, and this BA warrior girl.
Yeah.
It's really cool. From one creator to another, she's the best. Thank you very much for having this interview. We're gonna do a quick giveaway, and the first person who can successfully guess my social security number will get everything that is tied to who I am. So, and I'll give you a hint. My favorite color is turquoise. And thank you very much. And cue the theme music.